World Alert, 3IATLAS, and Wormwood sparks prophetic interest. Right now, at this very moment, something is passing through our solar system that has scientists around the world in absolute turmoil. It's massive, Manhattan-sized, and it's moving through space in ways that shouldn't be possible. You will be shocked when you discover 5 findings about this object. Discovery 1. The object that shouldn't exist. October 2025. Astronomers at the Atlas survey in Hawaii detect something unusual. Very unusual. An object moving through our solar system, but not like anything they've seen before. They designate it 3IATLAS. Let me break down what that name means, because every part of it is significant. The 3I stands for Third Interstellar Object. This is only the third confirmed object from outside our solar system that we've ever detected passing through. The first was Oumuamua in 2017. The second was 2I/Borisov in 2019. And now this, 3I/ATLAS, interstellar. That means it didn't originate in our solar system. It came from somewhere else, from another star system, from the vast emptiness between stars. It traveled for potentially millions of years through the void of space, and now, right now, it's passing through our cosmic neighborhood. The size is staggering. Initial measurements suggest it's roughly the size of Manhattan. We're not talking about a small asteroid or a chunk of ice. We're talking about an object between 1 and 2 kilometers across. Massive, visible, undeniable. But here's what makes this so urgent. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, 3I/ATLAS is on the far side of the Sun. It's at perihelion. That's the closest point in its orbit to the Sun. But we'll get to that in a moment. First, you need to understand why scientists are so fixated on this particular object. Because we've had interstellar visitors before. Oumuamua caused a stir. Borisov was interesting. But neither of them generated the level of concern, the level of intense scrutiny. Why? What makes this one different? The trajectory is wrong. When an object enters our solar system from interstellar space, it should follow predictable paths based on gravitational physics, simple physics. Newton's laws. We can calculate this. But 3I/ATLAS isn't following those calculations. Not exactly. It's moving through space with subtle deviations that shouldn't exist if it's just a natural object responding to gravitational forces. Think about it like this. Imagine you throw a ball past a fan. The air from the fan will push the ball slightly off course in predictable ways based on the fan's strength and the ball's speed. But what if the ball moved in ways that the fan couldn't account for? What if it adjusted its path in ways that seemed intentional? That's what we're seeing with 3I/ATLAS. And that's why scientists are paying such close attention. But it gets stranger, much stranger, because it's not just the trajectory that's wrong. It's what this object is made of that has everyone from Harvard to NASA asking questions that, until now, existed only in science fiction. Discovery 2. The anomalies that don't add up. So, let's talk about what 3I/ATLAS is actually composed of, because this is where the natural comet explanation starts to completely fall apart. Spectroscopic analysis, that's when scientists analyze the light reflecting off an object to determine its chemical composition, shows something that shouldn't be possible for a natural object from interstellar space. High concentrations of nickel and iron. Very high. Far higher than any natural comet or asteroid we've ever studied. We're talking about metallic composition that's more consistent with processed materials than natural formation. But here's the really bizarre part: almost no water. Now, if you know anything about comets, you know they're often called dirty snowballs. They're primarily composed of ice, water ice, carbon dioxide ice, other frozen compounds. When they get close to the sun, that ice sublimates, turns directly from solid to gas, creating the characteristic comet tail that we see. But 3IATLAS, minimal ice, minimal water, heavily metallic. That combination doesn't make sense for a natural object. It doesn't fit any formation model we have for comets, asteroids, or any other solar system body. It's an anomaly, a massive, Manhattan-sized anomaly traveling through our solar system right now. Dr. Avi Loeb, a theoretical physicist at Harvard, not some fringe conspiracy theorist, but one of the most respected scientists in his field, has gone on record saying there's a 40% probability that this object is artificially created. 40%. Let that sink in. One of the leading physicists in the world is saying that there's nearly a coin flip chance that we're looking at an alien spacecraft or probe passing through our solar system. And he's not alone in his concerns. The scientific community is divided, yes. Nobody's saying this is definitely just a normal comet, because it's not normal, not even close. So what are they doing about it? How are they trying to figure out what this thing actually is? Enter the Juno project. NASA has redirected radio telescope arrays to focus on 3IATLAS. They're scanning across multiple frequencies, looking for what they call technosignatures. Technosignatures. That's the scientific term for signals that indicate artificial, technological origin. Radio transmissions, electromagnetic emissions, anything that would suggest this object is transmitting, receiving, or processing information. They're essentially asking, is this thing communicating? Is it collecting data? Is it an unmanned probe sent by some alien civilization to study our solar system? And here's the critical test that's happening right now. Scientists are watching to see if 3I/ATLAS changes speed or direction after it rounds the sun at perihelion. Because here's the thing, if it's a natural object, it will follow predictable gravitational physics. The sun's gravity will slingshot it in a specific direction at a specific speed, and it will continue on that trajectory out of our solar system. But if it's artificial, if there's any kind of propulsion system, if it's capable of maneuvering, it might change course. It might adjust its speed. It might do something that natural objects simply cannot do. And if that happens, if they detect even a slight course correction that can't be explained by gravity, everything changes. Daniel Allen Jones, a prominent expert in near-Earth objects and potential threat assessment, has been following this closely. He's stated publicly that he remains skeptical but hopeful. Skeptical because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we don't have definitive proof yet. But hopeful because the discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence would be the most significant event in human history. So that's where we are scientifically. A massive interstellar object with anomalous composition and unusual behavior, being monitored by the world's most powerful telescopes and radio arrays, with scientists literally watching to see if it does something that would confirm artificial origin. But while scientists are focused on the possibility of aliens, there's another explanation that nobody in the mainstream scientific community is considering. An explanation that was written down nearly 2,000 years ago. An explanation that describes an object exactly like this, falling from heaven and bringing death in its wake. And that explanation is found in the book of Revelation. Discovery 3. Wormwood, the star that falls from heaven. I need you to open your Bible with me. Turn to Revelation chapter 8. We're going to read verses 10 and 11, and I want you to pay very close attention to every single detail that John describes, because what I'm about to show you is going to completely transform how you understand this prophecy. Revelation 8, 10 to 11. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. Now, before we dive into the details, I need to give you the context of where this prophecy appears, because understanding the sequence is absolutely critical to understanding the significance. The book of Revelation is structured around 3 series of 7 judgments, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls. These aren't random disasters. They're organized, sequential, escalating judgments that God pours out during the tribulation period. The 7 seals are opened first. The 6th seal reveals cosmic disturbances, the sun becoming black, the moon turning blood red, stars falling from the sky, and every mountain and island being moved. This is the prelude to God's wrath being unleashed. Then the 7th seal is opened, and there's silence in heaven for about half an hour. Revelation 8, 1-2. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. That silence is terrifying. It's the calm before the storm. It's heaven holding its breath before unleashing judgments unlike anything the world has ever seen. Then the 7 angels prepare to sound their trumpets. Each trumpet announces a new wave of judgment, and each one is more devastating than the last. The first trumpet, Revelation 8:7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. 1/3 of all vegetation on earth burns up. Think about that. 1/3 of all forests, 1/3 of all grasslands, gone, burned, destroyed. The ecological devastation is unimaginable. The impact on oxygen production, on food supplies, on wildlife, on human survival, catastrophic. The second trumpet, Revelation 8, 8-9. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea, and had life, died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. Something like a great mountain, massive, burning, is thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the ocean becomes blood. 1/3 of all sea life dies. 1/3 of all ships are destroyed. If this is a literal asteroid or comet impact into the ocean, the tsunamis alone would devastate coastal populations worldwide. The ecological collapse of ocean ecosystems would trigger mass starvation. The destruction of shipping would cripple global trade. And then comes the third trumpet, Wormwood. By the time Wormwood falls, the world is already in crisis. 1/3 of vegetation is gone. 1/3 of the ocean is dead. Food supplies are collapsing. Trade is disrupted. Millions, possibly billions, are already dead. And now the fresh water gets poisoned. This is the context. This is the sequence. Wormwood doesn't happen in isolation. It's the third wave of an escalating series of judgments that are systematically destroying Earth's life support systems. Now let's break down exactly what John sees. And the third angel sounded. The third angel sounds his trumpet. This is a divine announcement. This isn't a natural disaster that just happens. This is God, through his angel, declaring that judgment is about to fall. Throughout Revelation, angels serve as God's agents of judgment. They're not passive messengers. They're active executors of divine wrath. When the angel sounds the trumpet, he's announcing and initiating the judgment. This tells us something crucial. Wormwood is not random. It's not an unfortunate cosmic accident. It's a deliberate act of God's judgment against a rebellious world. That's important to understand because some people try to explain away these prophecies as natural disasters that God merely allows to happen. But that's not what the text says. The angel sounds. The judgment falls. This is intentional. This is purposeful. This is God acting. There fell a great star from heaven. Now we come to the object itself. A great star from heaven. The Greek word for great is megas, mega, massive, enormous. This isn't a small meteor. This isn't a shooting star that burns up harmlessly in the atmosphere. This is a great star, a significant celestial body. The word star is Esther in Greek, from which we get our word asteroid. But in ancient cosmology, Esther referred to any celestial object that wasn't the sun or moon. Stars, planets, comets, meteors, all were called Esther. So John is describing a large celestial object, not a planet, because planets don't fall, not the moon or sun, because they're still there later in Revelation, but some other kind of massive heavenly body. And it fell from heaven. The Greek word pipto means to fall, to descend rapidly, to drop. This isn't an object that slowly drifts into view. This is something falling, plummeting, descending with speed and force. From heaven. The word Uranos can mean sky, but in this context, it likely means the celestial realm beyond Earth's atmosphere, the realm of the stars, what we would call outer space. So John sees a massive celestial object descending rapidly from space toward Earth. And this description immediately eliminates several common interpretations. Some have said wormwood is symbolic of a corrupt leader or false teacher who poisons spiritual truth. But the text is too specific. It's not a person, it's a star. It falls from heaven. It impacts physical geography, rivers and springs. It causes physical death. People die from the water. Others have suggested it's symbolic of God's judgment in general, not a specific event. But again, the text is too detailed. John gives specific effects. 1/3 of rivers and springs are affected. The water becomes bitter. People die from drinking it. These are observable, measurable physical consequences. This is a literal celestial object causing literal physical effects on Earth's water supply. Burning as it were a lamp. Now, here's where the description gets really specific. And this is where the connection to interstellar objects becomes impossible to ignore. John says the star is burning as it were a lamp. The Greek word kaio means to burn, to be on fire, to emit light and heat. And lampas means lamp, torch, or light source. So this object isn't just reflecting sunlight like a normal asteroid or planet. It's actively burning. It's generating its own light. It appears as a torch or lamp blazing across the sky. Now, let's think about what causes a celestial object to appear to burn. When objects enter Earth's atmosphere at high speeds, Friction with air molecules creates extreme heat. The object glows, burns, creates a fireball. We see this with meteors all the time, shooting stars that streak across the sky, burning up in the atmosphere. But here's what's interesting about John's description. He doesn't say it burns when it enters the atmosphere. He says it's already burning as it falls from heaven. There are a few possibilities, and this is where modern astronomy gives us answers that John couldn't have had in the first century. First possibility: the object is approaching the sun. When comets or asteroids get close to the sun's intense heat causes volatile materials on the surface to sublimate, turn directly from solid to gas. This creates a coma, a fuzzy atmosphere around the object, and often a tail. The object appears to glow, to burn, as gases stream off its surface. 3IATLAS is doing exactly this right now. It's at perihelion, its closest approach to the sun. If it's going to appear to burn like a lamp, this is exactly when it would happen. Second possibility: the object has an unusual composition that causes it to glow particularly brightly. Again, 3IATLAS has high concentrations of nickel and iron, exactly the composition that would create the kind of burning appearance John describes. Third possibility, and this is more speculative: what if the object is artificial and has some kind of propulsion system? What if the burning is actually engine exhaust or energy emissions from technology? This would align with the Harvard physicist's suggestion that there's a 40% chance 3IATLAS is artificially created. If it has propulsion, if it's maneuvering under power, it would appear to burn as energy is expelled. I'm not saying that's definitely what's happening, but it's worth considering that John's description of burning like a lamp could be his first-century way of describing technology he has no frame of reference for. Regardless of which explanation is correct, the key point is this: John describes a celestial object that appears to burn, to glow, to generate light as it falls from heaven. And we now know that interstellar objects approaching the sun can and do exhibit exactly this characteristic. It fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. Now we come to the impact zone, and this is where the prophecy gets very specific about geography and hydrology. The star falls upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. First, notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say it falls on cities. It doesn't say it impacts land masses. It doesn't say it hits the ocean. That was the second trumpet. It specifically falls on rivers and springs. The word potamos means rivers, streams, flowing water. And pej means springs, fountains, sources of water, the places where water originates from the ground. So this object either impacts directly on a major river system, or it impacts in a location that contaminates the headwaters and sources that feed multiple river systems. Now here's what's fascinating. If you wanted to contaminate the maximum amount of fresh water with a single impact, where would you aim? You wouldn't hit the ocean. That's too big, too dilute. You wouldn't hit a city. That's localized. You'd hit a major watershed. You'd hit a region where multiple river systems originate. You'd hit the springs and fountains that feed rivers, that flow through multiple countries, multiple continents. And John says the third part of rivers and springs are affected. 1/3 of Earth's fresh water supply becomes contaminated. Let me put this in perspective. Only about 2.5% of Earth's water is fresh water. And of that, only about 1% is easily accessible surface water. Rivers, lakes, streams, The rest is locked up in ice caps or deep underground aquifers. So we're talking about contaminating 1/3 of the 1% of water that humanity depends on for drinking, agriculture, and industrial use. If this happened today, it would be an extinction-level event. Billions of people would be without safe drinking water. Agricultural systems would collapse. Civilization would break down within weeks. And John is describing this happening after 1/3 of vegetation is already gone, and 1/3 of the ocean is already dead. The compounding effects would be absolutely catastrophic. But here's the question: how does one celestial impact contaminate such a vast geographic area? And that's where the next part of the prophecy becomes crucial. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. This phrase is absolutely critical, and most people read right past it without understanding the significance. John doesn't say, "And I will call it Wormwood." He doesn't say, "And it should be named Wormwood." He says, "The name of the star is called Wormwood." Present tense. The name already exists, as if this object is already named before it falls, as if the name has been assigned, predetermined, established. The Greek word is absinthos, which refers to a plant called Artemisia absinthium, wormwood. This plant is intensely bitter. It's been used medicinally throughout history, but in large quantities, it's toxic. It contains thujone, a chemical compound that can cause seizures, kidney failure, and death. In the ancient world, wormwood was synonymous with bitterness and suffering. It appears multiple times in the Old Testament as a symbol of judgment and calamity. Deuteronomy 29:18. "Lest there should be among you man or woman or family or tribe, whose heart turneth away this day from the Lord our God, to go and serve the gods of these nations. Lest there should be among you a root that beareth gall and wormwood." Proverbs 5:4. "But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword." Jeremiah 9:15. "Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I will feed them, even this people, with wormwood, and give them water of gall to drink." Lamentations 3:15. "He hath filled me with bitterness, he hath made me drunken with wormwood." Throughout Scripture, wormwood represents God's judgment, bitterness, suffering, and death. So when John sees this star and identifies it as wormwood, he's connecting it to this entire biblical tradition of judgment. But there's more to the name than just symbolism. But here's what's chilling about this name in the context of this prophecy. In many Slavic languages, including Ukrainian and Russian, the word for wormwood is Chernobyl or Chernobyl. Yes, that Chernobyl. April 26, 1986. Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine explodes. It's the worst nuclear disaster in human history. Massive amounts of radioactive material are released into the atmosphere. An entire city is evacuated. A 30-kilometer exclusion zone is established that remains largely uninhabited to this day. The radiation spread across Europe. Water supplies were contaminated. People died from radiation poisoning, not immediately, but over time, as the radiation caused cancers and organ failures. The water, in a very real sense, became bitter and poisonous. When the disaster happened, Christians in the Soviet Union immediately made the connection to Revelation 8. They said, "This is wormwood. The prophecy is being fulfilled. The water is poisoned. People are dying." And there's certainly a striking parallel. The name matches. The effect matches. Water becoming poisonous. People dying. The scope was regional. affecting a significant portion of Eastern Europe. But here's the problem with interpreting Chernobyl as the fulfillment of the Wormwood prophecy. It doesn't match the description. Chernobyl wasn't a star falling from heaven. It was a man-made reactor built on the ground. It didn't fall upon rivers and springs. It was a fixed installation that contaminated the surrounding area when it exploded. It didn't affect 1/3 of the world's fresh water. It affected a regional area, devastating as that was. So Chernobyl can't be the Wormwood of Revelation 8. It doesn't fit the description closely enough. But here's what I find fascinating and deeply unsettling. What if Chernobyl was a preview? What if it was a warning? Chernobyl gave us a small-scale, localized example of what Wormwood will do on a global scale. And that should terrify us. Because if Chernobyl, which affected a relatively small region, was that devastating, what will a true, worldwide Wormwood event look like? And the third part of the waters became Wormwood. Now we come to the mechanism of contamination. The waters became Wormwood. They took on the characteristics of wormwood: bitterness, toxicity, poison. The Greek word genomai means to become, to come into existence as something, to be made into. The waters are transformed. They're changed from life-giving to death-dealing. But how? How does a celestial object make water bitter and poisonous? This is where traditional comet explanations break down. Comets are primarily made of ice: water ice, carbon dioxide ice, methane ice. If a comet impacted Earth or broke apart in the atmosphere, what would it deposit? Water. More water. It wouldn't poison the existing water, it would just add to it. So the dirty snowball model of comets doesn't work for this prophecy. We need a different type of object. We need something with a composition that would actually contaminate water. Enter heavy metals. Heavy metals like nickel, iron, lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic are extremely toxic to human life in sufficient concentrations. They don't break down. They don't dissipate. They accumulate in tissues and organs, causing progressive damage over time. Heavy metal poisoning causes nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, neurological damage, kidney failure, liver failure, and death. The water would indeed taste bitter. It would make people sick. It would kill them, not instantly, but over days or weeks, as the toxicity built up in their systems. Now, here's what's crucial. Where do you find high concentrations of heavy metals in space? In metallic asteroids. In objects formed from the cores of shattered planets. In objects with compositions that don't match normal comets or ice-based bodies. In objects exactly like 3IATLAS, which spectroscopic analysis shows has high concentrations of nickel and iron and very little water. If an object like that impacted Earth, or if it broke apart in the atmosphere and rained metallic dust across vast areas, it would contaminate water supplies with heavy metals. The water would become toxic. People who drank it would die. But there's another aspect we need to consider. John says the waters became wormwood. Not that wormwood fell into the waters, but that the waters themselves became like wormwood. This suggests a transformation of the water's fundamental properties. It's not just contamination, it's a change in nature. What could cause that? Several possibilities. First, massive amounts of dissolved metallic compounds. If enough iron, nickel, and other metals are dissolved into water, the water's taste, color, smell, and biological effects would all change drastically. It would be chemically different water. Second, radioactive contamination. If the impacting object contained radioactive isotopes, which some meteoric materials do, the water could become radioactive. This matches the Chernobyl parallel: radioactive water that looks normal but is deadly. Third, chemical reactions. If the object's impact generated extreme heat and pressure, it could trigger chemical reactions in the water itself, breaking down H2O molecules, creating toxic byproducts, fundamentally altering the water's composition. Any or all of these mechanisms could cause water to become wormwood, to transform from life-sustaining to life-destroying. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. The final phrase tells us the result: mass death. Not everyone dies. John doesn't say all men died, but many men died, a significant portion of the population. The Greek word poloi means many, numerous, a large number. This is a casualty count in the millions, possibly billions. And notice the cause of death: because they were made bitter. The word pikraino means to make bitter, to embitter, to make poisonous. This tells us something important about the timeline. Death doesn't come immediately. If the star itself killed people, through impact, through blast effects, through immediate catastrophic damage, John would describe that differently. But he says people died of the waters. They died from drinking the contaminated water, which means there's a delay. There's a period where people don't realize the water is poisoned. They're thirsty. The vegetation is already gone from the first trumpet. The oceans are already contaminated from the second trumpet. Fresh water is the only resource left. So they drink. And the water is bitter. It tastes wrong. But they're desperate. They have no choice. And slowly, over days or weeks, they start to get sick. The toxins accumulate, organs fail, and they die. This is psychological horror on top of physical horror. Imagine knowing the water is poisonous, but having no alternative. Imagine watching people around you get sick, knowing you'll be next. Imagine parents having to choose whether to give their children water that might kill them or watch them die of dehydration. That's the Wormwood judgment. It's not quick. It's prolonged suffering and agonizing death. And it's coming. Maybe not from 3IATLAS specifically. Maybe not tomorrow. But Revelation 8 says it's coming. The third trumpet will sound. Wormwood will fall. 1/3 of fresh water will be poisoned. Many will die. Now, some of you might be thinking, can't we prevent this? Can't we detect an object like this early enough to deflect it or destroy it? The honest answer is, probably not. Our current near-Earth object detection systems are designed to track objects that originate within our solar system. We've cataloged most of the large asteroids that pose potential threats. We have programs like NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office that monitor these objects. But interstellar objects? We had no idea they even existed until 2017. We don't know how common they are. We don't know their trajectories until they're already in our solar system. And by the time we detect them, they're often already past us, like Oumuamua, or moving too fast to intercept, like 2I/Borisov. 3I/ATLAS was detected, but it's on the far side of the sun right now. We're watching to see what it does next, but if it suddenly changed course toward Earth, we'd have weeks at most to respond. And what could we do? We don't have the technology to deflect or destroy a Manhattan-sized object. We have theoretical concepts, kinetic impactors, nuclear explosions, gravity tractors, but none of them have been tested at scale. None of them are guaranteed to work. and none of them could be deployed quickly enough to stop an object that's already incoming. The truth is, we're defenseless. And if Wormwood is indeed a future interstellar object that's already on its way toward our solar system, there's nothing we can do to stop it.
Many seem to be confused because they do not understand the book of Revelation. However, what if there was an animation showing the entire book? Well, we created that. And to watch that, click here.